For it is the God who said, "Let light shine out of darkness," who has shone in our hearts to give the light of knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ. So, happy Feast of the Transfiguration. Every year, on this last Sunday in the season of Epiphany, we mark the peak of our Epiphany season. Anyone get the mountain humor there? 8 o'clockers got it. They probably have more coffee before they show up. The thing about today is that after weeks and weeks of hint after hint and miracle here, bit of a divine manifestation there, this is it. It's the moment where we finally get to see Jesus shining forth in all of his glory. And for Mark, especially, who we've been journeying through Epiphany with, in fact, we will continue with Mark throughout the entirety of this liturgical year. But for Mark especially, the Transfiguration is the epiphany of epiphanies. It's like a big reveal. Ta-da! This is what I meant when I said Jesus, the Son of God. So, in theory, after today, the confusion should be all over. This is our last wow. Because we finally get to see who Jesus is, the beloved Son of God. But Peter, James, and John, they still seem confused, don't they? I mean, I have to admit, I think I would be a little bit uncertain about what was going on if the teacher that I had been following all of a sudden transfigured into this blinding white light. And we're talking about the days before electricity too, so they probably haven't yet seen LED lights. What can I say? So it's clear in this version that they have no idea how to respond. Now, I'm going to give you the spoiler answer to the question, how should they respond to seeing Jesus transfigured? Because in Mark's gospel, it's actually there in the immediately preceding interaction between Jesus and the disciples, because that's where Jesus said to them, "Take up your cross and follow me." Take up your cross and follow me. Only the liturgical year does not give us that until 2 weeks from now. So we will spend time with that answer to that question, how to respond to Jesus. But today we get to unpack it in a little bit different and more immediate way. What's happening here? Because I feel like Mark's version of the Transfiguration in particular leaves us with an important question. What is the Transfiguration showing us, and what is it asking of us today? What is it showing us, and what is it asking of us today? Now, I've pointed out a couple times that Mark's version of almost everything that we hear about Jesus is sparse. He's just not a flowery details and description kind of guy. So there's usually a piece that just stands out in a way that it doesn't stand out in any of the other versions of the Transfiguration. And in this case, I feel like what stood out to me this week was that quote. "This is my son, the beloved. Listen to him." Does anyone recognize those words? Where did we hear them before?
At the baptism, yeah.
At Jesus' baptism. That's right, which we heard right back on the first Sunday after the Epiphany. Jesus' baptism. Only they were a little bit different. Because what we actually heard there was, "You are my son, the beloved, and with you I am well pleased." So that seemed like it was speaking to Jesus. might or might not have been heard by anybody else in that moment at that baptism. It might have been helping Jesus to understand himself and what God expects from him. But there's no question here. This is the loudspeaker. Hear ye, hear ye. This is meant for all the world to hear. And in case we didn't, realize it and are kind of skipping over it, there's an exclamation point. Listen to him, right? It's all there. So it seems like, at least in this version, there's some emphasis on the fact that Jesus isn't being changed in the Transfiguration. Jesus is just finally being seen for all of who and what he is. It's something that was there in Jesus all along, only now everyone gets to see it. It's like Mark saying, don't confuse transfigure with transform. Jesus isn't being changed, Jesus is just being shown. It's a public revealing of something that was inside him. So, you know what this makes me think of? Superheroes. You guys know me, right? I think about them a lot. Now, I think in this case it's because superheroes and their journeys, often their origin stories especially, are all about how you own and use your powers. How you own and use your powers. There's lots of stories like that. Some of them, there is an actual transformation that happens. I mean, Spider-Man, of course, he was just a regular kid, and then that radioactive spider came along. Completely different. But there's a lot of them where you have people who had these powers in them all along. They just didn't know it, and they had to discover them. So the one that's on my mind right now is the one I've been watching on TV, Echo. Has anyone else watched that? All right, good. I don't have to worry about spoiling it for you. It's on Disney Plus. It's not one that's getting big fanfare, but it's a real little gem. Because Echo is about a character named Maya. And Maya is a child, originally in the beginning of the story, deaf from birth. She's born in the Choctaw Reservation in Oklahoma. And she speaks only in ASL because she's fully deaf. And she lives there until about, age 6 or 8. It's hard to tell from it. But at that point, her mother dies in a terrible car accident. And she also loses her leg in that accident. So then she's brought to New York by her father, who ends up working for a gangster called Kingpin. And they live there for a while, and at some point her father dies. As being a gangster, it's not a safe lifestyle choice. And so then Maya ends up being adopted by this Kingpin, the gang boss, and raised by him. So you can see where Maya sits, right? She doesn't actually know who she is at this point. She's being raised outside of her home and outside of her family, and she's being raised to be part of this mob. She's being raised to be part of a mob. So there's this point in the story where you don't actually know, is she going to be an anti-hero or a hero? Right? Is she going to be an anti-hero or a hero? And that's part of what Maya's journey is. Because she has to discover the source of her gifts and how she's meant to use them in the world. Now, it plays out beautifully because of all the silence. Now, she doesn't have any words that she speaks out loud. It's all in ASL, and it's just looped in seamlessly to how the story is told. It's quite beautiful, actually. And I'm not going to spoil it for you, but suffice it to say that she has to go through a crisis where she discovers where she's from, and that the source of these gifts inside of her, these powers inside of her, are not because of the way that who she thinks of as her father trained her, but they come from her ancestors. They're gifts that were given to her as a protector of her people, the Choctaw people. Now, the best moment, I have to say, is when she finally owns her gifts and their purpose. She puts on her Choctaw regalia. There's an actual clothing change that happens there. You see why this made me think of the Transfiguration. Just like those disciples who are going to have to figure out what it means inside them, what they have inside them to be able to follow Jesus, even if it means picking up their cross. So too, Maya had to make that discovery and that choice. Now, we don't always feel like we have superpowers inside of us that can just be, I don't know, shine a light on us and there they are, whoosh, coming out. Did anyone see that picture on the cover? I'm going to hold it up. This is the picture that's on the cover. It's in color. It's a picture of a monarch butterfly chrysalis, 2 of them actually. And I didn't know this before this week, but monarch butterfly chrysalises, they're that wonderful bright green, kind of a limey green when they get formed. And the chrysalis hangs there for several weeks, but in the days just before they break out, they slowly become translucent. So before that butterfly emerges, you start to see what's inside. You start to see what's inside shining forth. The transformation's already happened, and this is, in many ways, what's just a transfiguration. Ta-da! Butterfly coming. Something amazing with the power of flight. With the power of flight. So, I thought today, as we sit on the cusp of Lent, it might be a good time for us to think about that. Our collect calls upon us to be more like Jesus. They use, wonderful churchy language. It says here, may we be strengthened to bear our cross and be changed into his likeness from glory to glory. But I think that's really about asking us that question. What's in here, in us, that God has equipped us with, created us with, gifted us with, that we would like to shine forth from us this Lent, so that we too are more like Jesus. Does anyone have any things inside them they're hoping to let shine forth in the season of Lent that you think makes you shine more like Jesus? Anything that you've been pondering? I know Lent doesn't actually start until Wednesday, so you have a couple more days to figure this out, but I thought I'd get the ball rolling. What's in there that you would like to shine forth brightly in the season of Lent that makes you more like Jesus? Anyone have any thoughts?
Being a grandma.
Being a grandma, I like that. Yeah,
prayer.
Because it's love. Yeah. All right, who said something about, go ahead. Prayer.
Really prioritize prayer.
Prayer. Yeah. Prayer. Anyone else? Things that that are inside them that they want to shine forth during Lent. Any others? Callie.
I didn't quite get the question, but are you asking about epiphanies?
Oh, I'm actually asking about what kind of things you have inside you that you want to let shine out that are like Jesus. So, which is why she said love, and Katie said prayer,
Poetry.
Poetry.
Yes.
That's a wonderful one. Yeah,
That was my epiphany, by the way.
Okay.
When I was dying, literally, some years ago,
Uh-huh.
a minister came to visit me, and she asked me how I'm doing, and I said, well, I'm dying.
Uh-huh.
Does that tell you something? She said, who told you that? And I said, well, the doctors said they can't do anything more.
Uh-huh.
So I must be dying. And she said, well, who has the last word? The doctors or God?
Oh.
I never thought about that before. So my epiphany at that moment was, well, God, of course.
Yeah.
And she said, so she said, as you are living, what would your purpose be? And I said, to share my gifts.
Uh-huh.
She said, what gifts would you like to share? And that was it.
Poetry.
Yeah, that was it.
Well, and for those of you who don't know Callie, she shares her poems with us every week on Wednesdays, and they are epiphany after epiphany after epiphany of Christ's love shining forth. Thank you for that, Callie.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else have anything that they want to have shine forth from them over Lent? Go ahead, Stephen.
No,
Oh, I thought you raised your hand.
No.
Go ahead, Susan.
Trust.
Trust.
We've been grappling with some difficult decisions,
Uh-huh.
and it occurred to me the other day that I really don't have to make these decisions.
Yeah.
If I would just let go and let God, it'll all fall into place the way it's supposed to, and we are not really in charge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah. Amen for that. And trust, Jesus had to have that too, didn't he? He showed us that walk.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Online congregation, does anyone there have something they want to share? You don't have to, but I'm just checking. I don't want you to be forgotten. All right. Donna?
The word reconciliation comes to mind.
Yeah.
Reconciliation. So building bridges, making peace. Okay, that's a good one. Annie?
Forgiveness.
Forgiveness. Oh, that's a hard one.
Yeah.
I feel like we need a whole season or more to unpack that. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Any others? Go ahead, Jane.
Faithfulness.
Faithfulness. Faithfulness. Yeah, I can play out in a lot of ways. Katie?
Humility.
Humility. Yeah, that's a hard one. Humility. And I think that kind of ties in with trust, doesn't it? Yeah. Anyone else? All right, well, I invite you to continue to ponder this question. You have, 3 days till Wednesday, and then, the whole of Lent to think about what's in here that God gifted you with that you want to shine forth so that you're more like Jesus. And I just want to close. We have a song that we're going to sing at the end of the service, and when we sing it at the end of the service, it's going to be nice and raucous. But right now, I want to teach it to you as a chant. And it's pretty easy. If you need to, you can look at the last page of your bulletin. But if you want, you can just listen and hear the words. Because it just goes, transfigure me so that I might be more like Jesus. And then you repeat it, more like Jesus. Transfigure me so that I might be more like Jesus, Jesus my light. So I'm just going to start singing this and see if you can sing along with me. Transfigure me so that I might be more like Jesus, more like Jesus. Transfigure me so so that I might be more like Jesus. Jesus, my light, transfigure me, so that I might be more like Jesus, more like Jesus, transfigure me, so that I might be more like Jesus. Jesus, my light, transfigure me, so that I might be more like Jesus, more